Cool. So this is a remote Illustrator class. It's going to be pretty free form. Just kind of going through the steps that I would take if I were going to go from nothing to trying to laser engrave something. Yeah, just kind of talk about like the key things in Illustrator that are basically the most important tools that Illustrator has as far as laser engraving goes. Illustrator itself is like a very in-depth graphic design software, and you really don't need to know 90% of it. I guess depending on what you do, but this sort of what I'm going to talk about is sort of designed to just kind of hit on the high points as far as what tools like over here, and then you know what you want to do. I'll just close this for now. Like these things, because it can seem pretty daunting at the beginning because there's so many options, but really you don't need to know all of them. So laser engraving is probably like 80% Illustrator, and as far as skills go, and then 20% Illustrator or the actual laser engraver, the printing processor and things like that. It's actually fairly straightforward once you get a design to actually send it to the laser engraver and get that all set up. That's the easy part. The hard part is the Illustrator. So I'm basically going to talk about some of the tools in Illustrator, and basically, so let's just start over. Okay, new person. Okay, it blinks when there's a new person. Okay, good to know. All right. So
Pete,
yes.
Excuse me, what version of Illustrator are you using? Is this Creative Cloud?
This is the one that Facebook gives us. So yeah, I guess Creative Cloud Illustrator 2020 edition.
Okay. I just know sometimes the tools are a little different.
So everything's going to be pretty different depending on how you're set up. You might pull up your Illustrator and be like, wow, mine doesn't look like this at all. So that's a lot of it. It's this thing right here. And this little pull down menu dictates what's happening over here. So if you say like layout, it's just going to change all the tools you have over here. So don't be freaked out. These are kind of set up in a way that it works with your workflow and I really only use like two of these two, or these three. So don't worry about that too much. Yeah, so first thing you'd want to do is basically start a new drawing, a new document, and then the settings for the new document are basically the size, and the artboard you can kind of think of like an easel. It's kind of just the extents of your drawing. So let's just say we wanted to make something we were going to engrave something that was like 3 inches by 4 inches or something like that. And then yeah, that's pretty much all you need to do. And then we'll call it, no, we'll just not call it anything. And then it'll keep your old jobs up here in these little tabs. So if we want to go back to that one. Okay, so now we have this 3x4, and the way we can check that is that we're going to pretty much go through a lot of these. These are kind of like the key for drawing and for making designs. These are kind of your keys over here. So this one down here is your artboard. So this is what we just created. We just created an artboard by basically making a new drawing. But theoretically on this drawing, you could have like 10 artboards, but you're probably never going to want to like make a new artboard. There you go. You don't want to really do that. So just probably stick with your one artboard. But so when you select your artboard, oh man, this is kind of confusing with the little bar above here. Okay. These are your settings for basically your artboard position in space and its size. So we already said it was 3x4, but let's just say we wanted it to be 3.5x4 or something like that. Okay. And then this is going to constrain the aspect ratio or like the width to the height. So if we did this and we say we wanted to double this to 7, then this should double to 8. So keeping the aspect ratio or like the width to height ratio the same. And usually you want to put this reference point in the top left corner and then make it 0, 0, indicating that this is 0, 0, because that's going to have to line up with the laser engraver physically in space later on. So that's generally a good thing. So when you look at the laser engraver, it kind of has a XY grid there. So usually you want to start with 0, 0 and put that in the top left corner. That corresponds to the 0, 0 of the laser engraver as well. Just a good practice there. That way when you hit print, it doesn't print like 6 feet over this way or whatever. So.
Oh, it'll still do that just because
Yeah,
it
it
likes
might.
to.
You always just practice on something. Practice on something first. Don't. What Eric always says is think about your grandma's urn when you're laser engraving. So don't always practice on something first, and don't just immediately send it to the laser engraving on your workpiece. Okay, cool. So once we have the artboard set up, we're going to create designs on the artboard. And let's just say these are sort of your design creation things right here. So there's a pen tool, which you can point lines and stuff like that. And if you click and drag it, then it'll make a curve if you want to do that. So this is sort of free form, and then, yeah, so curve. If you drag, if you just click, then you just get straight lines. Okay, so that's how you draw. And then this is your direct selection. No, sorry, this is your selection tool. This is your direct selection tool. Your selection tool just lets you select things. So if you want to select this, then you use the selection tool. Because if I was in like circle drawing, you can't select it. You just draw circles. So if you want to be like, oh, I want to move this thing, you need to do the selection tool. Click the thing, and then you can move it. Ooh, that's weird. Yeah, then you can move it. Okay. So there's that. Direct selection tool, not that, I don't know. I don't use it very frequently. I think you use it to like select particular parts of your drawing. So if you want to like the actual points and then move those, whereas if with your regular selection tool, it kind of just has like the extents, and you move it and you can rotate it and you can scale it, things like that. Okay, and if you do something you don't want, you just hit Control-Z. A very useful tool, pretty much. Maybe your most useful tool. So, all right. So there's that. There's pen. Yeah, I don't really know what anchor point tool is. Curvature tool is sort of it's just another way to control. So the way that Illustrator works in general is that it's called vector art, and vector art consists of points and lines, essentially. And that's how it defines the art. So as you can see here, with the kind of the direct selection tool, these are like your anchor points, and then they have like vectors or paths between them. Okay, so really all art that you're going to be laser engraving is going to be comprised mostly of paths, anchors, and then like the area between, like the area in here inside the center. So that's how that's not how your computer works. That's called vector imagery, and like your camera works on like what's called rastering, which is basically like each pixel is just designated a color. It doesn't really have any idea what the lines are. It just says this pixel's black, this pixel's blue, but there's no actual shapes. But vector art actually has like shapes. So that'll come up later. Curvature tool allows you to like add curvature to your things. And if you click on stuff, then it'll make it straight. I don't know, just a lot of these are just playing around with them. I basically got good at using these by making this. Nope, not that one. That one also, but this one. I just kind of spent a long time making a design, learning lots of tools and stuff. So this took me a long time, but I learned pretty much everything I know just by kind of grinding away, using the curvature tool, using all the other tools and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just practice basically. This, if you left click, I'm using a laptop, but yeah, if you right click, then just shapes and things like that. So let's say we want to add if you hit shift, then it's gonna like rectify it. So this is gonna be like kind of hard to draw, but if you hit shift while you're doing this, then it's gonna put it at like 90-degree angles, which is like always good. Not always, sometimes. And then this, for some reason, controls the number of sides. So there you go, if you want to make a triangle. And then stuff like that. All pretty straightforward here. These are all kind of just shapes. Paintbrush and pencil tool are sort of like if you're really trying to wing it here. But you see what it does here? It still makes after you draw it, it makes these anchor points and then the vectors between them. And then if you wanted to go back to your curvature tool or something like that and zoom in, whoa, not that, sorry, been a little while. Whoa, take me back. Okay, not that. Damn it, not like that. Which one is it? Damn, so many buttons. I think if you just hit Command 0, yeah, there we go. If you hit Command 0, then it just goes back to it. Yeah, there's one of like the command roll things has to do with moving it side to side, but yeah, Command 0 just centers it. It's always good. What was I saying? Yeah. So if you were looking at this and you wanted to go back to like the curvature tool or something like that, and yeah, you could straighten like lines, add curvature to your thing if you wanted. So basically make pretty abstract stuff. Paintbrush tool is pretty much the same. Type tool, this one's straightforward. Hello. Cool. So there we go, eraser tool. This one's kind of interesting. So this is a shape builder tool. So this is, say you wanted to make some weird shape out of these two. Let's just delete this. Out of these two. So if you select this and you hit Shift and select another thing, that's how you select multiple things. You holding down Shift and selecting, or just dragging. But if you didn't want to select this for some reason, so you could just Shift, click. You'll have both of those selected. And then if you hit this shape builder tool and you drag through here, you'll make a shape out of those two pieces. So comes in handy later when you want to basically like trimming edges and things like that, which you could also do by click on all. So yeah, I keep going back to the selection tool because if you want to select anything, you have to be using this selection tool. You're going to accidentally draw a lot of circles because you're going to be trying to select stuff, but actually just drawing circles. So that's pretty common. Okay. Yeah, the scissors tool kind of does the same thing. Like it separates. Zoom in. Okay, Command plus, Command minus also zooms in. Yeah, you can get the intersections here, and then that'll sort of trim it for you too. This is the scissors tool. Similar thing to the shape builder. Command minus, or Command 0 to center it. Cool. And then these tools I don't use that much. This is an eyedropper tool, and this, if you have something colored and you want to color something that same color, this eyedropper tool takes color from one drawing or one part of the drawing and then puts it in a different part of the drawing. We can talk about that later, but it's not that important. On these ones, I very infrequently use. These are important. So these dictate what's called a fill and a stroke. So these, let's look at this shape. Let's look at this triangle. This triangle is dictated by anchors, paths, and the anchors and paths are basically the lines. And then within those lines, there's a fill. So right now it's saying with this red line right here saying there's no fill. But let's say we wanted to make it any one of like the bajillion colors they have in Illustrator, like this magenta color or this like green gray color. Well, you know why that didn't work? Because we didn't have it selected. Okay, so actually this has a white fill right now, just you can't see it. So green. There we go. So that's the fill. And then this right here is the stroke. And the stroke is basically the outline or the line between the anchors, or the path between the anchors, and what that actually looks like. So say you didn't want anything. Say you didn't want that line at all. You hit this button down here and it says none. So now we don't have a line around it, but we kind of wanted a line around it. So we'll go back to black. Let's say we wanted it to be red. Now it's red. Looks kind of bad, but kind of Christmassy. So yeah, so that's how you kind of make colors. And now, so let's see, we can go back to that eyedropper tool now if we want. So if we select this thing has a white fill, but we want it to be green. Eyedropper, now it's green. Same green as this one. And that would be useful because you can make a lot of custom colors here that are kind of like, they're not like the default colors. So yes, and this is a gradient. So now this, actually that was on the fill. I didn't really want to do that. You can make things have a gradient too. You can color the gradient, go from red to blue, if you're doing like a temperature scale or whatever you might be wanting to do. Okay, so that pretty much deals with a lot of this. So this, and then we'll go up here while we're looking at a shape here. And then this is kind of the same thing. This is your fill and your stroke. Fill, stroke. And this is the line weight. So also known as like the thickness of the stroke. So let's just make this. So you see how thick this red line is now? Let's make it twice as thick. Now it's very thick. Okay. And then you could make it like, I don't know why you'd ever want to do these, but there you go. You could. And then, or different type of lines and things like that. Basically don't need any of these for anything. I don't ever use these. So that's basically it. So that's basically how you do a drawing. Yeah. So as far as making basic drawings and shapes and stuff like that, that's basically how you do it. So let's just say we wanted to make this into like, let's just say we wanted to laser engrave this as like a keychain. Let's just say we wanted a triangle keychain or something like that. So sort of, this is how it, like I would actually go through it if I wanted to do it in, for laser engraving particularly. I hate these colors. So I'll change them back. So actually, good ones to remember is this is the color code. It's 3BBA90 is this random green code. If you do all zeros, that's all black, and all Fs is all white. Imagine that. 6. It's always 6 digits. So 6 Fs is white, and 6 zeros is black. Other than that, there's no reason to know any of them. So you see what happened here is that this is sort of laid on top of this. And that's kind of how the artwork works here. It's kind of like, think about it like a collage or something like that. You're basically placing things on top of each other. And then, yeah, you kind of just see what's on top. And that's basically what you would call the arrangement. So you say you wanted this circle actually to be in the front, you say bring to front, and now it's in front of the triangle. So, but for these, I want to like combine them, I guess. Back to shape builder. So we're gonna, let's just say we wanted to laser engrave this. You know what, while we're here, let's just add a rectangle down here and just make it a Christmas tree of some sort. All right. Didn't have all of it selected, so it's not going to work. Back to the select tool, shape builder. All right, so let's just say we want to engrave this Christmas tree. I know this thing is not really centered. You can go, actually these snaps. So these pink lines that you see like in the middle, those are like guessing where you want to put it. It's snapping in place. So right now this is snapping to the center of the grid. I just know that because what else would it be snapping to? So now this is totally centered in the middle of the grid. Let's do this a different way. So let's snap this to the center. Okay. So let's just say we wanted these to be lined up. That's what these are for, up here. So now this is like a little bit to the right. Boom. Press this button, horizontal align center. Now they're centered. Okay. And then if you wanted to do vertically, which we don't want to do, you would do this one, vertical align center. So now it's right in the middle. Very good. Probably couldn't tell really, but whatever. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right.
Some people can.
Yeah, my OCD was going off a little bit there, but I had to go back. Okay. So let's say we wanted to put some text in here too. Here's another thing. We'll say, let's be politically correct. Happy holidays. This is a happy holidays tree. Okay. Okay, so that's a good note. So let's have this. And this is scaling. You can do all sorts of scaling, but if you want to keep the aspect ratio the same, the ratio of the height to the width, you press shift. while you're doing this. And then that way it'll keep the height and the width ratio the same. Good to know. Okay. Now let's try to align these. Back here, align these, good. So, all right. And we could do horizontal, vertical line too, but that's gonna put it right in the middle, which actually isn't what we want. So let's not do that, Control Z. Okay. It's gonna put it right in the middle of this like compound shape here. So if anyone was confused about what we're doing, I'm making this into a, like some sort of ornament or a keychain, and to see like how I would actually laser engrave something like this. Okay, where's our time, by the way? Ooh, baby, I need to go faster. Okay, so, all right, so let's make a little circle in here, because if we want a keychain, then it needs to have some sort of, see how that's guessing where I want it? It's right, that's where I want it. Actually, no, it's not really. So, but now it is. So yeah, it's kind of smart. There you go. Actually, I don't want that. So if I drag something and I want it, you can drag it anywhere. But if you press shift is always kind of like make things go at happy angles. So shift is like 45 degrees or 90 degree angles. So if I wanted to just move it up or down, I press shift. Okay. And then if I want to scale it while keeping the center the same, if I want to scale it while keeping the aspect ratio the same, remember, I press shift. And then if I want to keep the center the same, I think I press option. So then it scales from the center. So I'm holding down shift and option at the same time right now. And I don't want this to be filled. I'm going to want to cut this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to want to cut around here, cut all the way around here, around the tree, cut this circle out so I can hang it on my keychain, and then engrave Happy Holidays. So it'll just be like a tree that looks like it says Happy Holidays and it's on my keys for some reason. So, okay. So right now this circle has a fill of black and no stroke, but I actually want just a circle with no fill. So if you press reverse, then I'll have a fill of nothing with a stroke of black. Okay, and then here's basically one of the random keys of Illustrator for laser engraving particularly, is if you want to cut something out, you have to, so now I have all the lines that I want to cut selected. And this is just something you need to remember. This hasn't, like, this is pretty arbitrary. If I want to tell the printer that I want to cut on these lines rather than just print on these lines, you have to change the stroke weight to 0.001. That's it. So now it'll cut on those lines rather than just printing the tree shape on a piece of wood. It's actually going to cut on those lines now. So basically, yeah, I think this is pretty much ready to go to the printer. This will just cut along these lines in vector. So yeah, I can't really talk about the printer because it's kind of hard to explain without having one. But basically it'll cut along these lines and then kind of print this like a regular printer, kind of going back and forth, sort of rastering like a picture. So taking up all like the pixels and everything like that, rather than actually following paths. So the vectors follow paths, and the rasters just kind of say like black, white, black, white, black, white. That's like spatially in like pixels along here, a grid of pixels. So that's basically how you would draw something from scratch. And that's one way to do it. That's how I did this thing. It just took a long time. I learned a lot of tools and stuff like that. That's great. So basically, obviously, no one would probably want to print this. They probably want to print something cooler, but this is how you do it. And then this is how you set the things for rastering here, which is just like the printing version of the laser, and then vector cutting, which is kind of the cutting through the wood part. And that number is 0.001. And that's the stroke weight or the line thickness. That's why it looks like it's not even there anymore.
This might be getting a little bit ahead, but
sure.
I'm pretty sure Illustrator has tools that if you type in text, but you want to cut out the text instead of rastering it, that it will outline it and turn it into a vector that will let you cut.
You wanted to cut Happy Holidays out?
Or if you wanted to cut out the text as opposed to leaving it burned in.
Yeah, I mean, Now this is just going to cut happy holidays out. I just changed it from being filled. I don't know if this was your question, but now, this is how it was before.
Right.
And then it'll recognize that the printer's smart enough to recognize this thing isn't a line that is line width 0.01. That means they want me to print it, not cut it. But if you flip it around, make it instead just outline and then change the width to 0.001, then it'll cut this out. So now you'll have a negative image of this happy holidays in your, yep. So cool. So that's basically one of, I would think, 2 basic ways that you'd ever want to go about printing something through Illustrator. The other one is taking something from online and trying to print that. So yeah, basically you can do that too. Like if you saw a design that you wanted to print, I probably wouldn't go too crazy complex on it because it gets a little hairy. But the main issue with trying to take something from online is that a lot of pictures, if you have a picture or you have a JPEG or a PNG file, those are raster images, meaning that the way that those are defined is that every pixel in the grid of the photo is just given a color. It has no information about the lines and stuff actually within the picture. So you need to convert that to what Illustrator and the looks like I can go longer than 40 minutes for some reason. Just got a notification from Zoom, whatever. What was I saying? Yeah, you need to, wait, what was I saying? Got distracted. Yeah, you need to convert the raster image to what an Illustrator and what the laser engraver use, which is a vector image. So comprised of anchors, like comprised of shapes rather than just pixels in a grid that are given a specific color. So, but you can start with that. So let's start a new one. Let's just make it 5 inches by 5 inches. So let's make us a new drawing.
Hey, Pete, sorry to interrupt. Can you
no
look over and see if anybody's in the waiting room trying to get in? I got a message.
Not right now. I did just let someone in, James, like a couple minutes ago. I don't know if it was James.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Yeah, like 2 minutes ago or something. I don't know how long he was in there. Sorry, James. Okay. So I actually downloaded an image yesterday, but maybe, yeah, it's kind of hard because I have to then share. Okay, doesn't particularly matter. So if you have like a JPEG or a PNG file that you want to print, what you do is you go to place. So place is basically put an image in here. And I think I was using this image yesterday. So this is one I found online. I literally went to Google and said salamander vector image. If you try to get a real image, it's going to be really hard for Illustrator to actually recognize all the lines since it's so complex. So the less complex, the easier life's going to be, basically. So now it says, where do you want to put it? I'm just going to put it in the top right corner, top left corner. So let's scale it down. But we want to scale it down, keeping the aspect ratio the same, not like this, because that looks weird. So Control Z. So we hold Shift. Now it's still the same, but smaller. Put it back in the corner. See how it smart snapped to the corner? There we go. Good. Or I could put it in the middle. Right in the middle. Maybe not right in the middle. No, I can figure that out. Okay, so we have this image now, but like I said, this image has no information about the lines here. Like this line isn't actually a part of this image. This image is just point, like gray, white, like on a very small scale. But yeah, it's dictated by like a number of pixels rather than the actual shapes within it. So this thing is like 10 megapixels or something, probably not. But so what you need to do is you need to go along here. And basically what these are, embedding means you're putting the image inside your file so that you don't actually need to have a different PNG file saved elsewhere, like referenced elsewhere. So if you embed it, then this is like a self-sufficient file. But if you don't embed it, that means you have your picture saved in one file, and then this is referencing that picture. You can edit the original. I don't really know what you want to do with that. So this is kind of the thing. This is the image trace. This image trace takes your PNG or your JPEG or your, I don't know, lots of types of image files from raster images to vector images. And then basically there's a lot of ways to do that. You can say, oh, this is a photo. There's probably only, I want 3 colors. And these are basically the ways you tell it to look for the lines. And a lot of times it's just kind of like click and say, oh, that did not look good. Okay, let's try a different one. That did not look good. So let's try 3 colors, which probably isn't going to look very good. Yeah, it looks bad. So I just picked out the 3 colors in here. And if it's a really simple file, it'll work. Basically, a lot of these will just take longer. So like a high fidelity photo might be better. Yeah, there you go. You got a high fidelity photo there. So now it looks the same. You still can't see these lines. They don't come up until you hit expand. But I actually think the best one for this was, I can't remember what I did yesterday. Not that one. Shades of gray. Maybe it was shades of gray. Shades of gray seems pretty good. Okay, so reviewing the tracing result with outlines. Yeah, ooh, that's not what you want. See, because this is going to make all of these into little lines, and you're going to have to pick all those out individually and delete them. Ooh. Switch art. You can do that. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so see, I just kind of like, I mean, I know what these do generally, but basically, unless you have a really, really large image, you can just kind of go through and see which one works best for your picture. So let's just go to tracing result. Okay, so now, yeah, this was good. This was good to know. So outlines here. So these are the lines that it found in the drawing. So it's like, oh, okay, these are the lines. These are your vectors now, okay? So if you hit expand, it's gonna basically take that raster image and make it a vector image. And essentially it's no longer a raster image, it's now vector lines. So we have this, and I click on this, it highlights all of them. So you're saying, oh, no, I don't want that. I want to delete this like gray box. So what's happening here is that this is it automatically been grouped. And what grouping does is it basically means when you click on one thing or move one thing, it moves all the things. So what you can do is you can go here and you can go click, go ungroup. That way you can just move that, delete it if you want. Or if you didn't want to ungroup it, which you really don't for this because you want to keep all the stuff kind of consistent. If you hit command click, then it's just going to get that one part. And there you go. And I don't know what this line is, but you know, we can live with that, whatever. So now we have this vector salamander newt that we would want to, let's say we wanted to cut it out and also print these different colors as different. The color in the laser engraving basically works. It's not a printer. There's no colors. The only colors are bare wood and burnt wood and less burnt wood and more burnt wood. So you don't really get color out of it. You get some resolution by basically how burnt the wood gets. So yeah, as far as color goes. But if you send this to the printer, it would automatically recognize that and print the darker colors more dark, more burnt, or it'll try at least. So. But right now we don't have any, we don't have any outline. So if we print this, it's just gonna print right on there. It's not gonna cut anything out. Let's say I wanted to cut this out. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is highlight the whole thing, or I didn't really need to do that since it's all a group. So I just click it once. And if you drag it, it moves it. If you drag it while pressing, I think Control, nope, Option, I don't know, this is all on Mac, so it's just these 4 buttons at the bottom, you know, just play around with them. But if you use Option and drag, then it copies it. So let's go back here. So say I wanted to copy this, you hit Option, but you don't want to move it over here. Maybe you want to move it straight up. Then you hit Shift as well. So I'm holding Option and Shift to move it just straight up or horizontally, or maybe 45 degrees. Yeah, 45 degrees. But, okay, so now we have this second one, but we want this to only be the outline. So that comes in over here, and this is one of the few times I actually go over here. So, and the tool we want is called, trying transformation. I think. No, it's called Pathfinder. Pathfinder does stuff with a selection of paths to create other shapes, basically. Like you can get outlines of things. You can get, if you have a bunch of images, it'll take the outline, or a bunch of vector art pieces. It'll take the outline or take the difference, or trim them, or divide them. Basically what we want to do here is we want to, since what we have here is we don't actually have an outline. We have this as part of the drawing, like here, but we want a line that goes all the way around the outside, because that's what we want to cut, right? We want to cut all the way around the outside. So the one we want is actually, I think, unite. So the unite just combines everything. So now it's just one piece. And if we hit this reverse thing, now we have just the drawing that we want to cut, right? So I remember, because, where is this thing? Okay, so we went back to layout now because I want these settings, because we're cutting on this line. So what we need to do is set this to 0.001. So now it's going to cut on this line, and it's going to print all this stuff, and it'll give it different color, or different burntness, also known as the color that the laser engraver gives, based on the colors that it recognizes here. But obviously we want these on top of each other again. So if we hit shift, then it'll move right back down, and it should snap into place, but you might have to get closer for that. Ooh, yes, I can zoom in with the trackpad. I remember how to do that. So yeah, you basically just move these on top of each other, and it should snap into place, basically. It's smart enough to figure that out. So now, when we print this, I don't know what this white line is, whatever. That's probably an artifact of the image trace, which now it's too late for that. Actually, maybe you could go back and do a different image trace, but basically now it'll cut this out. Well, it always does the raster cut first, and then the vector cut second. So it'll go back like a printer and print the colors and the lines within the boundary of the newt, and then it'll go back at the end and just follow these vector lines and burn all the way through the wood if you set the printer up right. So yeah, am I recording this? Yes, I am recording. Okay, cool. So those are pretty much the two ways that you'd want to use Illustrator to set up a drawing. Basically, the two being like just drawing it by hand using these tools, or if you want a design from online, if you don't want to draw like the dragon that you want to print, you just want to copy someone else's dragon, you go online, you download a JPEG, you do an image trace to get it from a raster file, which is just pixels on a grid, to a vector file, which is lines and points, which is how the printer works. And then basically from there, you take the Illustrator, or sorry, you take the laser safety class, and that'll show you how to go from here to actually printing, which is not that hard. So,
Peter?
Yeah.
For the basic tools that you use to do what you did today, does Corel Draw have a similar set of tools?
I would imagine. I have no experience with that software. So
okay.
These are not I'm using like a pitiful amount of the capacity that Illustrator has.
Well, I'm just thinking access to Illustrator for the rest of us is not as simple.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So working from the laser engraver, actually the print driver comes through the, like here. So actually we would just select like laser printer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to eventually get it in a format that you can just read into Illustrator. But like I just showed you, you can open up lots of stuff through here. I mean,
Zeke, Corel Draw is pretty similar. Most of the tools are similar. You're going to find them in different places, but it'll do all these same things.
Yeah.
And it is compatible with Illustrator.
Yeah. I don't know what file. You just have to find a file output that Corel had that also could be read into Illustrator, and these are the readable input files for Illustrator. So
right there's Corel Draw.
Oh, I don't see it. Oh yeah, there you go. CDR 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, they're cross-compatible usually.
Yeah, I've used Corel Draw, and even Corel will let you save a file in Adobe Illustrator.
AI
compatible.
Yeah, AI is the format that we. So yeah, so you basically like I said, I don't, looks like Jackie said it's similar-ish. You would just need to make your drawing in your software and then export it in some way that Illustrator could read it. Because
Gotcha.
Illustrator is how we talk to the laser engraver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's a good start for a
Sure.
basics class. Anyone outside of the shop staff have any questions? Good. Well, for now, we're going to call it there and talk more and iterate, and continue to improve, I'm sure. But this was a good basics. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Very good. Thanks, Pete.
Thank
Call it
you.
here. All right.
Talk to you later.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.